with James Kirklin. Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical.
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
Informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do. Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager. With James Kirklin. Let's get this microphone right. If you can hear me, chat. If you can hear me, drop a 1 in the chat. Say hi. Say hello. Let me know you can hear me. Make sure I'm transmitting, and we'll get this conversation started in just a moment. But I just need to know if you can hear me first. I'm gonna let the music keep playing until somebody responds, and then I'll cut it off. Or else, you know what? I know another way to do it. Yep, looks like we're transmitting, so we're good. All right, so I want to hear the music one more time. Hold on. All right, there we go. All right, listen, what's up? What it do? It's time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew with yours truly, James Kirklin, aka the Mind Massager. Getting ready to get this show kicked off. It's another Monday night, and on Monday night we do Monday Night Live. Do a different variety of different kinds of shows. So, and tonight I had a couple of ideas, a couple of questions, a couple of scenarios that I wanted to put before the audience tonight, and hopefully, we can have an intellectual conversation. Let me turn this music off before it starts again, and then we can get. But you have time to go ahead and get to share. Oops, wrong one. You have time to share this thread. Let somebody know that the Intellectual Stew with James Kirklin is on. If you know any. I had a good conversation with a young lady, the lady who was on the show last week, Robin K. Butler, the life coach. And if you missed last week's show, you missed a good show, because we talked about letting go versus releasing. Well, I take that back. We called it the title of the show initially was letting go versus releasing. But by the time we ended up talking with Dr. Rayfield Evans and also with Robin K. Butler, I think we came to the popular consensus that it's not letting go versus releasing, it's letting go and releasing. So letting go might be stage 1 or a stage, and then releasing might be another stage. So if you missed last week's show, feel free to go to YouTube, go to my page, and check that out. It's some good stuff. If you're hanging on to some past hurt or some past something in the past that you need to let go, and you want to figure out how to release it, go check out that show. And you would have picked up some really, really, really good nuggets. Do me a favor, go ahead, like I said, and share this thread. Let me make sure I've already shared it before I start. I have about 3 topics that I think I want to discuss tonight, and then we'll hopefully I can get your participation. I've already put the link in the chat. If you see that link right there, it says https://streamyard.com. That's actually the link that allows guests to come on the show. And I don't mind you coming on. If you have something that you can contribute to the conversation, by all means, feel free to tap in. Feel free to tap in. Because I'm a sapiosexual as well. So I'm attracted to intelligence. And that's what I was, I think I cut myself off a minute ago when I was talking. But what I meant to say was, she told me, she said, James, you attract sapiosexuals. And if you know what sapiosexuals are, those that are attracted to intelligence. Now, I don't call myself intellect, should I say, intellect. I don't think I'm the most intellectual person, but I do try to look at things different ways, not just one way. So that's what we're trying to do with this platform. So I wanted to go forward tonight and have this conversation. Like I said, the link is in the chat. You feel free to share this thread. Feel free to jump on in the conversation. But I want to talk tonight because I had a phone call today from one of the people who follow the platform, and she's also a classmate. We went to school. She was a couple years behind me, but I did a show on last Tuesday, because a show where I saw Dr. William Sullivan. He had made a post on Facebook, and in the post he made this contention. This is the gist of what he said. He said, some mothers, listen to what keyword, some. I need to put that disclaimer out there. Not all. I rarely ever speak in absolute terms. I try to speak in averages, but I rarely speak in absolutes. But what he said was, some mothers help their sons develop intellectual disabilities when they constantly answer for their sons, and then they end up marrying controlling women. Let me say that again. This is not my words. This was Dr. William Sullivan's post. I'm going to play the video in a moment of exactly what he said, some of what he said. But I want you to hear. He said, some mothers help their sons develop intellectual disabilities when they constantly answer for their sons, and then those sons end up marrying controlling women. What do y'all think about that? Do you think that's true? Do you think it's true that if a woman constantly, a mother, not just a woman, but if a mother constantly answers for her son, and I'm gonna tell you what this lady told me in a moment, but let me set the backdrop up like this. This is let me hear the first video. Here it is. This is one of them. So it says, when a mother is always defending and speaking for her son develops an intellectual disability. The intellectual development is arrested by his mom, so her son will become a man that has the ability to think for himself. So then he can't make a decision. He will marry a woman that's very bossy and controlling, and he will do whatever she says do because he's attracted to a mommy wife. All right, so that was what I said. What you heard me reading then was actually a post on the gentleman's page, Dr. William Sullivan. You can go there if you want to go look at his page or whatever. But that was actually his post. After I heard his post, well, after I read his post, I called him, I texted him, we had a conversation. I wanted to come on and talk about it. So we did a 57-minute conversation. Here's a little bit of what he said, just a little bit. You go back and watch the whole show. It was a midday show, like 11, 12 o'clock, so it wasn't a whole lot of people on, but the content's still available. Here's part of what he said. Listen.
And, and in the position I am in leadership and in coaching and working in HR and dealing with men and, them in position, I see a lot of men with the inability to make a decision.
Wow.
The inability to think for themselves. It's like, it's totally lost. And what I've also learned is why a lot of men get loud in conversations is because they don't know what to say. And they figure their loudness is just that's the only thing they got for them. Is to be loud and demonstrative in the conversation because they lack the inability to be intellectual and talk on the matter.
Okay. Hold on. Did I press it again? Okay, good. So I didn't. All right. So did you hear what he said? So let me for those that are just coming in, let me say it one more time. Dr. William Sullivan, he made a post last week. The gist of the post was that some S-O-M-E, some, not all, some different, spelled different letters, all that kind of stuff. Not all, because I don't speak in absolutes. He said some mothers help their sons develop intellectual disabilities when they constantly answer for their sons and they end up marrying controlling women. Now, when I put this post out, I know some people don't watch the video live. They end up going back and watching the replay. So this particular lady, she follows the platform. She's one that watches the actual replays. and she told me how she shared it. And she said, James, I want you to understand you have influence. And she said, and with you having influence, please, James, don't be irresponsible in your influence, because sometimes people will hold on to every word and they don't understand. She says sometimes what you need to do is you need to make sure you put disclaimers out, because people will take your word as absolutes. And I'm like, okay, keep going. And I was literally quiet for about 10 minutes as she spoke. And when she spoke, she said, James, she's pouring out her heart. And and I wanted her, and I want you to know I heard exactly what she said. But she said, James, when you tell the story, make sure you tell the full story. She said, because you're telling the story from the father's side, but you're not telling it from the mother's side. And I heard her. I get it. And please understand, I am one who advocates for Black boys. If you have followed me throughout the years, I mean, I started a project that I need to finish long time ago called Project Rob. Rob is an acronym that means reclaiming our boys. That whole idea it incubated from a conversation I had with my father when I was approximately 15. And what Dad told me was, and hear me when I say this, these are metaphors, these are parables. All this is not absolute. Don't take everything literal. If you do, you're gonna probably be frustrated a lot. But what Dad told me back then, that had to be 1987, 88. He said, James, Black men will one day become extinct. Now, not like, I mean, I know bald eagles and duck-billed platypuses and all these other animals on the verge of becoming extinct. But when he talked about Black men, he said we would either be on drugs, we'll be in prison, we'll be in the cemetery, or we'll be homosexual. Those were what my dad said. Now, that was 35 years ago when he told me that, somewhere around that range. And when you look at it, and he talked about it, when you look at it statistically, so many people have felonies, they're unable to vote. You have drug problems. Drugs really filled up the penitentiaries across the country. I mean, a lot of what he said actually came to pass. So I started an initiative to clog up the pipeline from pre-K to prison, right? I wanted to catch these young boys. So my point is, I really, really advocate for young boys. When I see them that I feel like are being mistreated, I try to, even by their mothers or whatever, I try to advocate. Even if it's just turning the light on for a second, just to allow the person to see themselves in that moment and the potential damage that they can do in the future. Because what we don't realize as parents, especially single parents, is sometimes we grow up with our children, right? What's up, Dawood? We literally grow up with our children, and sometimes growing produces growing pains. And anytime there's pain, there's always a response, right? Whenever you feel pain, if I'm frustrated and if I feel pain, at the bare minimum, I'm going to say, ouch. At the bare minimum, I'm going to grimace and make a face. At the bare minimum, I'm going to react some way. And when we grow up with our children, sometimes we use them as the outlet of the pain. I don't have a topic. You just listen, and I don't really have a topic because I'm flowing right now. I'll get you in a second. But as at the pain, Lord, I just broke my whole train of thought. Stay on. But yeah, but when we grow up with our children, sometimes they're the outlet for the pain that we're experiencing in life. And children, I don't know why we end up treating them like sponges, and or think that they're sponges and they can absorb everything that we do. So when we talk about mothers, some mothers, let me make sure I say that, some mothers helping to develop their children's intellectual disabilities by always speaking for them, that's what we mean. And it makes me wonder sometimes what it is that makes us want to answer for them. Now, this young lady, when she hit me this morning, she said, James, there are times when mothers have to speak up for their sons because those sons are unable to speak for themselves. What she said was, and she said that, because in her situation, her son is special needs, right? And I'm sure, I know what she's talking about is probably not what Dr. Sullivan was referring to last week when he made his statement. But I heard her heart, because her son absolutely needs someone to advocate for him. And I know several women who have sons that are autistic, some are high functioning, some need a little more supervision, some are hanging out. I know one in particular, her son, he came, he said, "Mom, I'm ready to get off the medicine." And the son got off the medicine and he's doing well now. And I understand, there are times that we moms and dads should advocate for their sons, but there's a difference in having to advocate for a son who needs advocating for than answering for those who actually have the ability to speak for themselves. Does that make sense? Let me give you an example. Dawood, I know you can agree to this because you probably do it like I do it. If I walk up to somebody and I see if you come up to me and you have your son and we have a communication, when I speak, I'm gonna speak to you first, but then I'm gonna speak to him. And if I ask him how old you are and you answer for him, I'm probably gonna say, "I wasn't talking to you," but I'm gonna be joking. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times that's just a natural reaction. A natural reaction is to speak for your son. And it makes me wonder what it is or why it is we automatically try to speak. Ladies, and ladies, y'all can help me with this question if you don't mind. Themby, Keisha, whoever, don't mind help me with it. If you have sons, if you used to speak for your son, why do you think that is? Why do you think so many women answer for their sons? Do you think it's because of impatience? They don't want to give him a chance to speak, give him the time he needs to develop the thought that's necessary to formulate a sentence, to process what he just heard. And then after he processes what he's heard, then he's able to regurgitate and give back an answer. Are you afraid that he might not get it right? Is it impatience? Is it frustration? Is it lack of understanding? I mean, what do you think it is? What do you think it is that makes somebody automatically answer for their sons? Because I don't know how, I wish I started to have Sullivan on, but I'm dealing with like 3 topics tonight, so I'm not trying to lock anybody down on a specific topic, because if you come on, you'll probably be on for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll move on. Okay, Keisha, what you said? Let's look at what she said. She said, "I'm not sure. I've always told my daughter at a younger age to use your words when people are talking to you and give them eye contact." Now that's good, and I appreciate that, Keisha, because you're proving a point for me. Because if you really go deep and you study Willie Lynch's letter, right? Willie Lynch talked about how to break a slave, and one thing he said in breaking a slave is to use the N word, woman, lady, because she's gonna raise the baby. And he said over time, what would happen is you would reverse the nature of black males and females. And this is why I say that you helped me with that, Keisha, is because what Willie Lynch said is the way you'll reverse the nature is that mothers will teach their daughters to be psychologically independent, but they'll teach their sons to be intellectually weak, because they'll always answer for him. And the reason they answer for him is because they don't want him to get caught up in the system. Because when that story is told, it's told about how to deal with a belligerent nigger in the community. Is when the male male slave, when he got out of line, they would beat him, tar and feather him, tie him to 2 horses, have those horses pull him apart, and do this in the company of the whole, do this in the presence of the whole company, right? And what they would do is they would bring specifically the mother and the son and the daughter, and the mother would grab the son while this is going on, as if to say, "I'll never let that happen to you." So what she does is she protects him in a sense from the world. And that's why I believe subliminally at times, that's why we end up answering. So you said you taught your daughter specifically. And now I don't know if you have sons or not. And I think a lot of mothers teach their daughters specifically. Go do this. Get the bag. Don't no. Make sure you do this. But are we teaching our sons the same thing? And I know some are. Please hear me. Please hear me. Are and let me clarify. Let me read Dawood's comment. He said they must know that their men hasn't had much social interaction with people. Let me read this. Put up here. He said they must know that their young men hasn't had much social interaction with people because of the setting in the home video game. Yeah, those things cripple us. Okay, you don't have any sons. Okay, those are things that cripple us. I mean, it's crazy how people can use a PlayStation as a babysitter, or a tablet as a babysitter, right? They can sit in front of YouTube videos and watch videos for 6. You got children that can't even read but can work YouTube. How does that work? I know they're looking at pictures. I get all that kind of stuff. I mean, I remember when we were younger, they had a game called Buzz. Buzz was like Jeopardy, and we would play it as a family. We, you know, my whole family, we would play it. And at the time, my daughter, the youngest, had to be about 4. And do you know she would beat us? I would be so embarrassed because I'm sitting here trying to read the question to get the answer, and somehow she would figure it out. I don't know, but she was able to process it and literally get the right answers. You know, that was just so crazy to me how she was able to do that. And children are exceptional. But is there a balance? Do you answer for your daughters as much as you answer for your son? I'm proud when I see my children respond, because you know what? That's the fruit of my training. Because like Dawood just said a minute ago, a lot of it has to do with the settings in the home. So if I'm setting up an environment in my home to make my child successful, to give them, I had a guy one time, I said, I'm teaching my son how to think. He said, teaching your son how to think? How do you teach your son how to think? I said, put him in scenarios where he has to think. I ask questions. I do different things like that. Even my daughters, I ask questions, because if I ask those questions, then I'm able to see, number one, I'm able to see what they're thinking, because you know what? I want them to get it wrong in the house. Don't get it wrong out there. I mean, like my son, when my son pledged, right? And he told me, he said, one time, he said when he was playing, he said, man, he said they the stuff they was doing to me, he said I wasn't stressed about that. He said, because my dad had been pledging me my whole life. Not that I abused him, but mentally I put stuff on his mind. I made him think. Same way with my daughters. And I handled them all differently. But that's what I did. Let me see what Lakeisha wrote me a long one here. Let me see. I'm gonna have to get somebody to read these comments for me. Eventually, I'm gonna need to show a program manager or something to read these comments to help. She said, as a mother of an autistic son, I spoke for him a lot. I believe that being a young mother with a developmentally delayed son, I went through a crash course of parenting of special needs child. It took for a traumatic event to take place at the time my son was 13 for me to understand that I had to force him to have a voice. Ooh. Ever since then, he and I had to grow a trust between each other to understand that I can only take him so far. That's good, Keisha. That eventually he would have to create his own journey. And you figured that out at the age of 13. You know what, though? And I'm glad you did, because there's a natural inclination. If you see your child has a deficiency somewhere, there's a natural inclination to try to fill that void, or to try to make up for that deficiency. And I get it. It's admirable, right? Especially in the needs of a special need. I've never had a special needs child. Not that I know of. I mean, I've never had a special needs child. So I can't even begin to relate to the young lady who called me today. I can't even begin to relate to Lakeisha's story as she just told. And I appreciate you for your transparency, Lakeisha. But as someone who's not raising a special needs child, 13 is almost too late. Do you know they build prisons in the future based on what the grades of 8 and 9-year-old boys in on standardized tests? They used to build prisons in the future, because prisons had become privatized. They become profit centers. They were on the stock. They are on the stock exchange. I mean, there's a target audience for prisons, right? So they had to know projections. They had to know how to build, how many prisons to build in the future if they were going to go forward, because so they would use standardized tests of 8 and 9-year-old boys. That means you had to challenge them before 13. You got to challenge them at 6. And I'm not, Keisha, I'm not talking about you. No, I'm not pointing the finger. I'm just talking in general. Yeah. Well, now we're gonna do all of it, Dawood. Now I told you before, if you want your own show, you can talk about what you want to talk about. I'm joking, but I'm laughing, but very serious. I'm gonna talk about them, and the reason I'm talking about that is reason I'm talking about that, Dawood, is because I got a phone call today after only talking about the ones you want me to talk about, and she felt left out. I can't leave her out. I can't leave Lakeisha out because those mothers are raising sons too. So I want to talk about all of them. All right, and I'll get it. So I mean, and at least let them know, Dawood, that we've acknowledged them, because a lot of us don't acknowledge women with special needs children. A lot of them don't. A lot of us don't realize that they probably. Oh yes, trust me. Most of the people in prison right now, it's not because they were some criminals. A lot of them deal with mental illness, my friend. Go do your research on that. Because the thing is that they, I forgot how long ago it was, several years, about 15 years ago, they closed down all of the mental institutions. They just closed them down. They stopped funding mental institutions like that. So when they closed them down, where did most of them go? Most of them went to prison. A lot of people in prison are suffering from mental illness, right? And I don't know. I've never been around an autistic child, but I wonder. Well, I can't say that. I can't say that. But I have a heart for, and I didn't have as much of a heart. I have a heart for the ones that I know. But when she hit me with that this morning, that's what messed me up. And the conversation is not about those going to prison anyway. The conversation is about mothers speaking up for their sons and helping them develop what we call intellectual disabilities. That's what Dr. Sullivan called it last week. And so here the question is for the ladies, because I hear a lot of women talk about emotional intelligence. They want their men to be emotionally intelligent. But let me ask you a question. How do you juxtapose developing emotional intelligence while you're also trying to avoid developing an intellectual disability? Because if you want him to be emotionally intelligent, but you shut him up every time he talks, or you don't give him a chance to talk, how is that developing? And to y'all, Lakeisha, Keisha, Themby, whoever's still there, let me ask you, give me to you all, what is emotional intelligence? Okay, Lakeisha said there are limited programs here in Arkansas for adults with special needs, and that's what the young lady told me today. I think she's in Texas, and she's going through something now. She's having to go to the school tomorrow because the school is ready to give up, I think, on her son for the most part, because they're not able to relate to the child, and the child acts out a lot. The child acts out. So, but Dawood, if you want, I mean, let me see. Let me see. He said, I can't type all things I want to say, but let's stick to the ones that are not special need, but the special ones can't be sent to prison. Yeah, they some of them can. They can. And if they don't go to prison, they might lock them up in a hospital. But most mental asylums have been shut down. So, what do y'all think, ladies? Do y'all because you want an first of all, some of you all want an emotional man, but then some of you want an emotionally intelligent man. But at the same time, some of us have developed helped to develop those intellectual disabilities. I mean, I can really relate to a lot of what Dr. Sullivan said last week. Not that I was ever my intellectual disability. Not that I ever developed an intellectual disability, because I can't really remember anybody shutting me down. The only time I was probably shut down was when I tried to put myself in an adult conversation. And I know all of us at some point, well, I ain't gonna say all of us, I'll just speak for myself, but most of us at some point have probably been embarrassed for trying to get in an adult conversation. And honestly, I literally hated being embarrassed. So it didn't take really but one time usually for me, so I can't really say that I was one of those who was and the link is in the chat for any of those that want to jump in. Dawood, the link is there if you want to jump in as well. But the link is there if y'all want to jump in on Facebook. But I can't say that I was ever. I think I was put in positions to think. I was put in positions to develop those intellectual skills, to be able to, like, interpersonal skills, to even be able to communicate and do those things, because it has to be cultivated. I never will forget, several years ago, my nephew came to visit us. And when he got to the house, he was probably 3, 4, and he pointing and grunting and wasn't really talking like that, because my mom and everybody else probably had been talking for him for so long. But when he came to visit us, my ex, she got down on one knee and she looked him in his face. She said, "Young man, we talk in this house." And she walked off. Now, when I came back later on that day from work, that little boy who was pointing the finger and grunting and all this, when he started doing all that kind of stuff, you know what I did? I mean, when I came in the house, you know what he said? "Hey, Uncle James." Different environment, different environment, different environment. You can produce what you want to produce in your child if you pour into them properly. But the problem is, a lot of us think that children can we holler at them, we yell at them, we cuss at them, we do all these types of things, and then we think they just supposed to take it. I used to feel so bad rushing my daughter in the morning, because by the time I would finish rushing her for school, and she wasn't really good at handling pressure, and I'm steadily rushing, "Come on, we got to go," because I wanted to make sure she caught the bus. And by the time she got on the bus, she would literally be almost crying, right? And I'm supposed to expect her to cry and then go have a good day? Man, I was so convicted after a while because of that, because I played an intricate part in the development of who she was and who she is as a person. That's my job. The child was never asked to be here. I did that. I was a part of that. So I had to do my part to make sure I cultivated her properly, right? And mothers, the same way with your sons. Listen, the world wants to lock your boys up. Do you hear me? Most of them are worth more money in prison than they make on the street, because a lot of them ain't paying taxes, no way. So they want to lock them up. So if you don't teach them how to communicate, if you don't put them in positions where they can learn, and this is not pointing the finger. It's not. This just let me get Dawood in and see what he wants. Let me see what he wants to say. He got a little more time today. I'm not gonna put a clock on you, Dawood. Come on in, my friend. Dawood, I can see you today. What's up, buddy?
Greetings.
What's up with you?
You saying you saying that you hit the first thing you hit was the Willie Lynch letter, which we know you're not pointing the finger, but the system is designed when relationships end or whatever have you, the woman takes ownership of the children. These are my children. These are my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a sister just tell me the other day, and I said, "Man, I salute you for being honest." She's afraid for her son, so she raises him to be more inferior, because she knows if she raised a man strong, he could be killed out here. So then she raises her daughter, to be a little more assertive, a little more uh independent than the man child, because she's not in fear of her losing her life as much as she is in fear of the man losing his life. And that's where the Willie Lynch letter comes into play. But like you said, we're not pointing the finger. It's a nation problem. It's
Yeah,
all our problem.
it's a systemic problem. It's a systemic problem.
Yes. And like you
And the thing,
said, in Florida, it was they recorded a governor saying, uh how many student seats we got? And they said the number. He said, "Well, how many empty prison beds we got?" "Well, don't worry about the school. We'll just fill up the prison beds." And they was talking about children, like you said, 12 and 13 years old, already planning to send them to prison versus making the school system better.
yeah. And Dawood, it was so crazy. I never will forget. One time I was at a what was it? Old Charlie's restaurant up in Kennesaw with my family. And I saw these little white girls. It was several little white girls. And I could tell from the conversation they were school teachers, right? Because they were talking about their day. And then one of them started talking about one. She said this. She's talking about one little boy. She said, "I got this one little boy in my class. Da, da, da. He acts up all the time, and you could tell he's gonna be a little prisoner."
Oh man.
And and I'm nosy, so you know what I did. I mean, and I don't mind. I don't have a problem saying. I don't have a problem saying what I'm gonna say. When she said you could tell he's gonna be a little prisoner, what I said to her was, "Good thing he has you." She said, what? I said, good thing he has you, because the last thing you would want as a teacher is for one of your students to go to prison. And it made her think in that moment, right? And that's my job.
Right.
I think we're all of us should be light. You know, no matter what we believe, we should be light. And light dispels darkness, right? Whenever we see darkness, if you shine light on it, then darkness has to leave in that moment, right? So when I saw something that I considered to be darkness, that woman in her conversation, I said, good thing he has you. And she looked at me and she was like, huh? I said, good thing he has you, because I know you don't want your student to go to prison, right? She said,
Hey,
go ahead.
I had this woman that I was dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her children, and I asked her, would she ever have a problem with me disciplining them?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I'm not ready for that. Now he's 13 and the daughter is 10, and we was riding in the car together, and I said, hamburgers is the meat is from missing children and this and that. And the son just blurted out, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Now, what my mind went back to, because see, I'm a man that has foresight. I already saw when she told me she wasn't ready for me to discipline them, you gonna have a problem. Because all they kept on it, like right now, what she does to them when they when they go to school, they got a device in their hand, they got their own earphones. When they get out of school, they got their own device in their hand and their earphones. You see what I'm saying? There's no real, like you said, social interacting even with her.
Wow.
So then when I come around, she have to make them speak to me. She shouldn't have to do that. But because of the other things that she's doing in the home, it's depriving them on how to socially engage with people.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
I got you.
So I just watch everything, and sometimes we could be the problem, and then we don't even want to listen to someone that can see something, because you can see a lot when you're not a part of the situation than you can when you are the situation.
I get that, but can I play devil's advocate for a moment? Because how long had y'all been dating before you asked, could you discipline a child?
About 3 years.
Oh, about 3 years. Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah.
Because the thing is, and because one thing about it for me is there's a very fine line between discipline and abuse, right? And the main difference between discipline and abuse is that discipline adds an element of love. You can't discipline a child that you don't love, right? You just can't do it. You can't discipline it, and that's, I think, the missing component a lot of times when you have people come in trying to discipline an outside child to discipline. I probably wouldn't discipline somebody else's child, especially if the father's still in their life.
Well, my thing is, discipline doesn't always mean physical. It could be just talking to.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying? And it, like we said, so see, this is how I see an oxymoron. Mm-hmm. We say it takes a village to raise one child, but then we'll say in the same breath, well, I wouldn't mess with somebody else's child. I want you, if you see my child doing something, I want you to help me with them.
Yeah, take a village to raise a child. Take a village to raise a child, but don't always take and raising doesn't always mean disciplining like that either, though. You know what I mean?
That's right. Exactly.
It's part of the environment. Yeah, it's part of the environment. Yeah, because I ain't gonna lie, you don't put your hands on mine. If you'd have put your hands on mine, you probably would have saw me. And I know in the old days we could do that, but everybody had different moral values then. Now I don't know what your moral values are.
But you guess why you don't know? Because you don't want to know. The same thing that we're doing with our children, that's why we don't know each other no more. Everybody has separated themselves. Everybody's staying in their own house. Listen, our young children today, they don't have neighborhood friends like we used to.
And you just made my point, and that's the exact point I'm saying. I mean, if we were in those times, then yeah, you can. But because we're in these times, you can't. Because I mean, I don't know you. And that's, I live, and you're right. I live beside people. I lived beside my neighbors in our old house for years and didn't even know their names. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know nobody across the street, none of that. But we were, I ain't gonna say for obvious reasons why we weren't. Number one, I wasn't never at home because I was always at work.
Right.
If I wasn't at work, I was at the baseball field with my children. If I wasn't at the baseball field, I was at the tumbling gym. I was always doing something, so I ain't get home till at night. And they were culturally different than me. You wasn't gonna put your hands on. They were so the neighbor. I talked about this the other day. The community has changed. North Little Rock might still have a little community left, but see, cities like Atlanta, The community got lost in the city a long time ago. And
Right.
that was the design. You know what I'm saying? Because they want to take, because if you could take the community away, then you could take the sense of family away. If you can take the sense of family away, you know, it's so much more that's entailed in that. But the fallout, and I want to stay on topic, the fallout is that the casualty is usually little black boys. If you look at the target audience of who's suffering, who's going to end up going to prison in the future, like you just said, what's going on in Florida, what's been going on in history, what Wackenheimer has been doing, what Corrections Corporations of America has been doing, what Pulaski County probably gave over their jail to private, you know, all these privatized prisons in Arkansas, privatized prisons all around the world, right? And the thing about it is there's no rehabilitation anymore.
No.
But it's proven that if they can intellectually process, at that point, they can conceptualize right against wrong. Does that make sense? You know, because there are those that don't even know right against wrong because they were never taught choices. They were never taught consequences. Their decisions were always made for them. There were times I would take my children somewhere and I would walk behind them on purpose. They wouldn't even, you know, just to see how they responded in public. You know, one time we were at a restaurant at Atlantic Station and we were leaving Atlantic Station, and my daughter had walked way ahead of us, and she was about to cross the street, and there was this car that was coming. They playing loud music, car full of kids, right? And they were coming fast, and I thought they were on the verge of hitting my daughter. So with a very stentorious voice, that's a voice that can be heard about 50, the voice of 50 men. I said, with a very stentorious voice, I said, "Hey, slow down." The music stopped. They stopped. They looked at me, and they waited on my daughter to cross the street. Now, a lot of other kids probably would have been like, "F you." Fuck you, nigga, drove off on me, all kind of stuff, right? Didn't have that, right? Because I spoke with authority, right? I spoke with a voice of authority, and they had to respond to it, right? But I'm doing that because I'm watching my children. Because my daughter's walking, she's super oblivious to what's going on. You know, she act like she don't see the car coming, and that happens with a lot of our children because they're caught up in what's right in front of them. They don't see the peripheral, they don't see the potential danger, or they don't see the hidden snare, they don't see the potential pitfall in front of them. But if I put it in them right, when they face those pitfalls, they know how to overcome them. And first of all, but even before they have to overcome it, they know how to recognize it. And that's the part that I think a lot of our children are not getting.
Right. And then, you know, when we were growing up, the first thing we did is we went outside. See, and again, the children are being sheltered now, so they're not having these encounters on know how to interact and how to deal with situations. Because I had a neighbor across the street, and his son is a special needs child. He was interacting with my son. They had a little squabble. The man came over here and yelled at my son. I'm in the house taking a nap. So I go across the street, I knock on the door. I said, "I want to talk to you," but come to find out, the husband and the wife are both legally blind, right? And we end up having a conversation, and he apologized, say, "I shouldn't have yelled at your son. I should have came with it." I said, "Yes, that's the order of operation. If my son is doing something that you don't like, you come talk to me." This is what we've lost in the neighborhood. And like you said, you living next door to your neighbors, and you really didn't. But we should know, because you know, when you have children, you want to know who all is in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
You know, and like the mothers, man, they just, like you said, we're not pointing the finger, because they love their children and they just want them to be safe. It's like it's a hard thing when you want them to be safe, but yet you want them to be able to learn. But how do we got to figure out and it, like I said, man, now that you said this, man, our women do need protection. That's why they're afraid. They're afraid.
And First Samuel chapter 30 when it talked about the Amalekites. You know, and it talked about about when David and the men left the camp to go fight against the Amalekites. The
Yes.
moment they left, wasn't nobody left there but the women and the children.
Children.
And when the women and children were left, that's when the Amalekites came in and took the women and children away captive because
That's right.
they were exposed. We as
That's
men
right.
are supposed to cover our children. I wonder if it's time, and I don't know if this is true. So maybe if some women want to inbox me and let me know if this is true. Did some of the men leave when they found out their children were special needs?
Wow.
Did they give up on you because they found out that their child was special need? That's just a question. I don't know. Because I never was in that position. I know with my son that I think what is it called? They wanted to do an amniocentesis with him because they wasn't sure if he was gonna come out, special needs or not. But we're like, it don't matter if he's special needs or not. He's still gonna be our child. So what difference does it make? They're not used to doing a test. Well, they were like, well, you can have certain things, certain preparations in the room. I said, okay, I get it, but we still didn't do it. But I'm wondering if that's the case because it seems to me in those instances that both parents are really necessary, right? Because they
Right.
really, parents. I think parents are necessary anyway. Both parents. I would love to see every house have 2-parent households, but I know that's just not the case in the world that we live in. But in those instances, man, that's something that I think that men really need to do their part to make sure that child is protected, man, because that child needs protection just as much as any other child needs
Yes.
protection, right? And so I get it. When she came in my cause she didn't inbox me, she called me this morning. She was like, Jane, we got to talk. And she said, you're powerful. Your platform is going to grow, but you need to be responsible for what you say. And you didn't say anything wrong. She said, but make sure you tell more of the story. She said, don't tell just part of the story. She said, let
Right.
somebody like me come on, or let somebody, a deadbeat dad come on, or let some other, and I don't have a problem with that. I open this, Dawood, I let you come on every time you want to come on. I have no
Anytime
issue.
on, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a,
I
it's
have
a,
no
it's a,
issue.
yeah. It's open. It's open for, and I want to hear more of the women, like you said, the more the women talk about their experiences, man. Because I just sitting there talking with you, yeah, I giving it more thought now. Like, man, they really got it tough because they living in fear for their child, but they
Yeah,
want their child to be, involved, but they afraid. So that's why they probably speaking for them, but somebody else speak to them. That's why they probably, no, turn this way, go this, and they not allowing them to experience anything so they can develop the skills that
bro.
they need, but it's out of love.
It's out of love, and
Yeah,
love will make you do some strange things. Love will make
dang, yeah,
love will make you protect. Love.
yes,
Sometimes love doesn't produce. What you produce, what you want to produce. I know. I hear you all say all the time, "Don't marry for love." Don't marry for love. And you're right. You're 100% right in that. Don't only. And let me say that. Don't only marry for love. You definitely got to love the person that you're gonna marry, but it's got to be some more things in that package. And sometimes love, I think sometimes love will limit you, especially limit your scope, because love is an emotion, and we understand that love is an emotion. And with it being the emotion that it is, sometimes it causes us our thoughts to become convoluted, if you will, to and it will put you in a position where you're trying to protect, and you won't let him get it all out. You won't let him get it all out, but you got to put him in a position where he can get it all out. And if you do that, eventually he might get it wrong sometimes. He might get it wrong a lot of times, but
hmm
eventually he'll get it right. And let me tell you something. There's really not much wrong with getting it wrong. I wanted my children to get it wrong at home. I wanted them to get it wrong at home. Please get it wrong at home.
right,
Because if
right,
you get it wrong at home, I can correct those erroneous thoughts. If you get it wrong at home, we could talk about your process. Okay, now how did you come up with that conclusion? Let me give you an example. This young lady, this is not one of my children. Now, let me just clarify this. This is not one of my children. My children would have done this, but this is not one of my children. But she said she was at an interview, and they asked her how many tens was in 210. She said, how many 10? That was a question in the orientation. How many tens are in 210? Those in the audience, and you, Dawood, if I asked you how many tens are in 210, what would you say?
what about 11?
11. That's only 11. 11 times 10, 110. I would say 21. Okay.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I put it on you fast. Lakeisha,
Yeah.
you said 21. Anybody else? How many? If somebody asked you how many tens are in 210, what would you say? I really want to know your answers, because her answer messed me up, and it was funny, but it was interesting. Dawood said 11, but he meant to say 10. He meant to say
21.
21. So
Yeah.
Lakeisha said 21. Anybody else got any answers? How many tens in 210? You can use a calculator if you want to. But how many tens in 210? Yeah, real talk. This is funny to me. But how many
And
tens?
the reason why I said 11 because 11 times 10 is 210.
No, 11 times 10 is 110.
Is it?
Yeah, 210, 21. Because think about the 21 times 10, 210.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's sleep. We ain't in math class
Yeah.
tonight. That's all right. But anyway, but I said 21. Dawood eventually said 21. Lakeisha said 21. But so here it is, 210. So you see 210 right there, right? When they asked her how many tens in 210, she said 1. Because if you look at the picture, 210, 210, to her it's 110 in that 210.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
She could look at it like that. How many tens are in 210? She only looking at 110.
Bruh, does that make sense? No, she's not petty. No, that's my point. People process differently.
Differently, yes.
If you don't know how that person processes, you'll think they're being petty. You'll think they're being silly. You'll think they're not smart. But people are process how they process. But check it out. She got it wrong at orientation. I would have corrected that at the house. Does that make sense?
Right, exactly.
As parents, we give them. It was a very practical answer.
But she looked at it. She answered it the exact way. How many tens do you see in 210? Well, I only see 110.
Most people we know operate from an objective standpoint.
Yeah.
We look at what we can see. If it's in front of us, we look at it with our eyes, our olfactories. We look right ahead of us, right? What's in front of us? She saw 210. 210. The man asked her, how many tens do you see? She said, I don't see any tens. I see 1. I don't see it some. I see 1. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. She was not wrong, which lets you know every question does not only have one answer. Yeah, I can leave here going to Arkansas tomorrow, and I can go several different ways. You know, I can leave here going to leaving here going to Birmingham right now. I could go 75 north, catch 24 in Chattanooga, take 24 over to 59, jump on 59, go south, and I'll be in Birmingham in a few hours. Or I can catch 285, jump on 20, go 20 straight, and I'll be there in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Or I can get off in Douglasville and go 78 and go all the way through 78, all through these little rural towns. It might take me 3.5 or 4 hours to get there because I'm going through rural towns and I'm going through red lights and all, but I'm still going to end up at the same destination because several ways to get to the same answer. Nobody would have thought that there's only 110 and 210. And honestly, by the world standards, guess what? That's the wrong answer. But if I had corrected that at home, if I had asked my own child how many tens in 210, because I remember we used to do this little thing with our hands where you put up 10 fingers and you could do the nines on your timetable, right? 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 9 times 3 is 27. I teach this to 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, right? I could teach a 7-year-old how to do their nines on their timetable in about 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, any 7-year-old, and I promise I can. Well, give me 10 at the most. But I can teach them their nines on the table on their timetables just by holding my hands like this. 9 times out 1, I got 9 fingers on this side. 9 times 2, 18. 9 times 3, 27. 9 times 4, 36. But I do that at home because I want them to get it wrong in the house. I don't want my children to get it wrong outside. So therefore, I would not make I didn't want to make my children be quiet. I wanted them to talk. I wanted them to. So mothers, don't, and like I said, and I hear you. I hear your plight. Lakeisha, I appreciate you for your testimony. The young lady who enlightened me today, who woke me up and said, James, make sure, you tell the whole story. I appreciate her for her testimony and her son, because I know some mothers are dealing with special needs sons and all those. But those children that have the ability to be intellectual, those children that have shown the ability to have interpersonal skills, give them the ability to be just as flexible as they can be, man, because you just never know. That child could be a president, could be a CEO of an organization, all kinds of things, because you put them in positions to be successful. You put them in positions where they have to think. You put them in positions where they can win, especially if they you put choices and consequences in front of them. They make the right choice, and the consequences make the right choice, and they get the right consequence, and of course incentivize them, and that will make them do right even more. So I appreciate you all for having this discussion with me. Like I said last week, a good week. It was a good thought. If you haven't heard the whole conversation between Dr. Sullivan and I, go to my page. I think I called it. I just asked the question: do mothers contribute to their sons' intellectual disabilities by always answering for them? Now, there's a difference between answering for and advocating for. There are times you never stop advocating for your son. You never stop. Make sure he gets all. Hey, I advocated for my children so much, I used to embarrass my kids. They would be upset with me because I was advocating so hard. I paid $70 a week for Trey to have hitting lessons. So if we went to the baseball field and somebody tried to pull him to the side and wanted to teach him how to hit, I had a problem with that. Number one, you should have talked to me before you talked to my child. So I advocated for him. But he could answer and he could communicate and he could talk. And when I would hear him talk, I loved it, because I knew. Or when I hear my daughter, Kennedy now, Kennedy used to be in a shell so much, man, but now Kennedy communicates and has a personality and jokes and laughs and all her things. And her jokes are like well placed. Now Mackenzie don't take no mess off anybody. She if she rock with you, she rock with you. But she's very intellectual. She's had a job since she was 14 years old. 15, she's been answering the phone since then. So she knows how to communicate. And I'm appreciative about that. So do me a favor, help your children develop and become the most that they can become. Help them become all that they. Lakeisha, I appreciate you. Lakeisha, if you didn't read her comment earlier, she said she had a child that was developmentally challenged, autistic. And she said she felt the need as a young mother to always advocate for him. She said, but at a certain age, she had to realize that he he had to have his own voice. At 13, she realized he had to have his own voice. That's too late for most boys. Now, that in her situation with him having autism, that's different. But in most cases, teach those boys younger. Teach them. Now, you teach them now, and part of that now is not just speaking all willy-nilly and all out of turn. Part of learning how to be a man is wisdom and knowing when to speak. Because there are times you need to shut your mouth. There are times you need to be quiet. There are times, and the hunter knows. If a hunter is in the woods, it's not like he's out there saying, odi, 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 ho, odi, odi, odi. He's not out there saying, odi, 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 ho, and making loud noises and singing and all that kind of stuff. Not a hunter, because a man is a hunter by nature. He's not doing that. Why? Because if he's making a lot of noise, the animals are going to hear him and they're going to run. You want to be quiet and calculated and use all of your senses. Use your sense of smell to smell the animal. Use your sense of your hearing so that you can hear the rustling or the footsteps or things around you. Use your sight to be able to process your surroundings, all those things. And then when all those things have taken place, then you speak. I'm learning now that when I hear something, just not to answer right away. Even y'all, let me give you an example. I'm closing for real. Do you all watch? I mean, do y'all ever notice, like, when you call the automated system and they say put in your phone number, and then they say put in your phone number and then press pound. A lot of times I never make it to the pound because I'm not listening to the whole statement, right? And then sometimes I'll speak too soon to the automated thing because I'm not listening to the whole statement, all those types of things. Got to learn how to know when to speak. Okay. Listen, this has been fun. Appreciate you all that have listened. I hope it was informative. I had a couple other questions I was going to ask, but I might do that another night this week. This conversation went longer than I expected, but it's a good conversation. I think it's one that needs to be had. But I'm getting ready to roll. Listen, if you have not checked out the website, ma'am, please, sir, go and check out that website. It's www.theintellectualstew.com. There you can find all the Intellectual Stew merch, like the On the Path to Better t-shirt, The World is Changing, The World is Changing t-shirt, all those things. You can find those at that site. But I appreciate you all for tapping in tonight. Dawood, bro, I appreciate you for always helping me out. Lakeisha, you always help me out, and I appreciate that as well. But as I always say, as I close the show out, the world is changing. But my question for you is, why do you remain the same? Y'all have a good night, and I'll catch you next week.
Hey, let's change the world together. Get your The World is Changing tee at www.the.
Listen, friends, I was stuck in a state of stagnation. I was depressed after a divorce. I was marinating in my misery, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to work, didn't want to go anywhere. I just wanted to stay where I was. But then all of a sudden I had an epiphany, and I realized that where I was not where I was supposed to be. So I made an adjustment. And you know what I did? I got on the path to better. You know why? Because I realized that better existed. And you know what I want to do? I want to invite you to join me on the path to better. Get your On the Path to Better t-shirt at www.theintellectualstew.com. Will you join me